On February 22, 2014, President Yanukovych and Ukrainian Prosecutor General Sanka are forced to flee to Ukraine over to Moscow. Yulia Tymoshenko is released from prison and the 2004 constitution is reinstated. Then, in response to the increase in violence towards pro-Russian Ukrainians in March of 2014, Russia sends in troops to protect the majority pro-Russian Crimea and annexes it back to Russia. It is right after this overthrow of government on May 13, 2014, that Hunter Biden and Devon Archer, the college roommate of John Kerry's stepson, are named to the board of directors of Ukraine's largest gas company, Burisma Holdings, whose troubles had just been exiled to Moscow with prosecutor Sanka. June 27, 2014, Ukraine's new, more European-friendly president, Poroshenko, signs an association agreement with the EU, and by the end of 2015, he awards George Soros with Ukraine's Order of Liberty, one of its highest honors, in Kiev. Poroshenko states that Soros' International Renaissance Foundation has, quote, played a big role in the development of Ukraine's statehood in the past 25 years, as he honors him that night. So, here's an example of what happens when Soros succeeds with his manipulations in a country. He set up a foundation in 1990, right as they were about to become independent for the first time in 70 years, and under the moniker of charity, he was able to insert his manipulations into every part of society, exactly as he has done here. The educational system, the printing presses, the news, and community organizing. Through protests and propaganda, he was able to put in place a more cabal-friendly leadership and send them on the path to joining the European Union. And of course, this movement was more popular with younger voters because through the machinations of this so-called charity, they had been able to plant seeds through mediums over the course of 2 decades. The older voters were, of course, more inclined to lean towards their centuries of ties with Russia, so trying to turn them would be hopeless. But younger voters are blank slates and had grown up with the rising popularity and push of this movement. Here is where we find ourselves when Viktor Shokin inherits the Burisma Holdings case in early 2015, which was started by the now exiled Sanka. This time, however, the two owners of John Kerry's stepson's private equity firm, Rosemont Seneca Partners, Devon Archer and Hunter Biden, have since joined the board of Burisma Holdings. What you're about to hear is the Secretary of State, John Kerry, first pressuring Poroshenko to fire Shokin in December of 2015. Listen.
But before Vice President Biden comes, I just wanted to try to urge you to see if there's a way to get by this problem of replacing the Prosecutor General, Shokin, because from our perception, he's blocked the cleanup of the Prosecutor General's office, and I know the Vice President is very concerned about it, and I think it'd be good to try to have some resolution of that before the Vice President comes, if it's possible.
Now, all of us should understand that the Prosecutor General office has any opportunity under the law to make any cases against corruption, because it immediately goes already from the 1st of December, the day before yesterday, to the new Anti-Corruption Bureau and the new Anti-Corruption Prosecutor Office. And I was very proud that Jean-Claude Juncker, Angela Merkel, François Hollande, and everybody welcomed it as a very strong position of Anti-Corruption Prosecutor and General Prosecutor Office. For the prosecutor position and for Inspector General, I am also proud that exactly as we agreed with your Minister of Justice guy and your embassy, the Office of Inspector General is already established. It is coordinated not by General Prosecutor but the Deputy of General Prosecutor, Mr. Sakvarilidze, exactly as we agreed with the Vice President and with the Ambassador. For the other continuation with the Prosecutor General Shokin and other things, I think I will speak with the Vice President Biden, and I doubt that it would be theoretically even possible to make any decision without any arguments before.
Vice President's going to take
Thank you, John.
Okay, so Kerry tries to make up some BS that Shokin isn't cleaning up the prosecutor role and should be removed, and Poroshenko essentially shoots him down and says that that's a different field anyway now, but says that he's going to wait for Biden. But here's where you start to see how the situation works and why they work to collapse these governments and put in more friendly people. Because now that Ukraine is essentially cut ties with Russia following the Euromaidan coup, they no longer have access to the loans they used to rely on from Russia. So now Ukraine is dependent on loans from the U.S., which affords the Obama administration the exact sort of power you're going to see Biden exhibit right here, where he refuses Poroshenko $1 billion loan guarantee unless prosecutor Shokin is fired. Biden recounts the circumstances of said quid pro quo here.
That is, I'm desperately concerned about the backsliding on the part of Kyiv in terms of corruption. They made, I'll give you one concrete example. I was, but it just happened to be, that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. So I got Ukraine. And I remember going over convincing our team, or others, to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
So there you have it. Right from his mouth, the world got to hear how Vice President Biden used his power of influence for personal gain in the way of removing a powerful threat to his son's company, Burisma Holdings. And now, even more damning evidence is surfaced. In this newly released audio, you will hear Vice President Biden and President Poroshenko actually working out the illegal exchange.
Yesterday, I met with the General Prosecutor Shokin.
Yes.
And despite of the fact that we didn't have any corruption charges, we don't have any information about he doing something wrong, I especially asked him, no, it was the day before yesterday, I especially asked him to resign. As his position as a state person, and despite of the fact that he has a support in the parliament. And as a finish of my meeting with him, he promised me to give me the statement on resignation. And 1 hour ago, he bring me the written statement of his resignation.
Great.
And this is my second step for keeping my promises.
I agree. Assuming that there is a new government and a new prosecutor general, I am prepared to do a public signing of the commitment for the $1 billion. Again, I'm not suggesting that that's what you want or don't want. I'm just suggesting that that's what we're prepared to do. And again, it wouldn't be finalized until, the IMF pieces are written.
Extremely strong motivation. One of the possible candidates was leader of my fraction, Lutsenko, who is the public figure. If you think that the political motivated figure would be not very good from your point of view, I recall this proposal. I do not propose, because nobody knows that I want to propose Lutsenko. In this situation, I take all the political motivated figures out from this process.
All right, right. Well, look. Let me when you and I finish speaking, let me huddle with my team, talk over what you and I just talked about. I agree with you. There is a sense of urgency here.
Look, what we're doing now, I think that within last 3 weeks, we demonstrate the real great progress in the reform. We voted in the parliament 100% tariffs, despite of the fact that the IMF expected only 75%. We're launching the real reform of the state-owned enterprises. We launching reform for the prices for the medicine, removing all the obstacles.
Oh, you did a lot. I agree. Hey, Mr. President, Joe Biden, how are you?
Very well indeed. As usual, when I hear your voice. Thank you very
Well,
much.
you are doing very well. Congratulations on getting the new prosecutor general. I know there's a lot more that has to be done, but I really think that's good, and I understand you're working with the rod in the coming days on a number of additional laws to secure the IMF. So, but congratulations on installing the new prosecutor general. It's going to be critical for him to work quickly to repair the damage Shokin did. And I'm a man of my word. And that now that the new prosecutor general's in place, we're ready to move forward in signing that new $1 billion loan guarantee. And I don't know how you want to go about that.
So there you have it. A real quid pro quo laid out in their own words, going back and forth over the course of a couple months. I mean, Joe Biden lays it out step by step over the course of these phone calls. He wanted Shokin gone. He held $1 billion over Poroshenko's head to make sure that happened. And after a couple months, it did. And who did he replace him with? Lutsenko, the prosecutor who had went after Yanukovych back in 2006 and was then subsequently jailed by him in 2012, is reinstated, and just like Biden had promised, he signs the $1 billion loan guarantee to Ukraine. 1 year later, in 2017, investigations into Burisma Holdings are completed with no charges filed. And that is how the cabal, through Soros, first destabilized Ukraine into a near civil war and then took it over, which opened the floodgates for cabal alumni such as Biden, Kerry, and others to exploit it. And how do you loot a country on a macro scale? Obviously, on a micro scale or local scale, it's looting exactly how we picture it. For example, here's some pictures of former prosecutor Sanka's mansion, which was looted right after he was forced to flee with Yanukovych. But on a macro or global scale, you don't loot stores or homes. You loot a country's natural resources. That's why they all have their family and friends hooked up with energy companies. Even the Uranium One case traces back to Clinton and Kazakhstan. But that's what seems to be happening in these countries, with Biden taking this case even a step further by grossly misusing his power as vice president for personal gain to protect one of these corrupt dealings. Now, here's Shokin breaking down how Poroshenko did it.
He came to me and said, "You are a patriot of Ukraine. We need this $1 billion. We're at war, and if you are a patriot, you will close this case." My conversation with Poroshenko on this, Shokin says, was in a phone call. It was after we started seizing Burisma assets in Ukraine when Poroshenko called me and said, "Listen, this all has to stop already. Joe Biden's temper is overflowing. This seizing of Burisma assets," said Poroshenko, was the last straw. Shokin says Poroshenko then paid him a visit in his office, asking for Shokin's resignation. Shokin responded and asked, "Why do I have to go? I haven't done anything wrong. I'm doing my job. This is standard procedure. We have reason to freeze Burisma assets." And Poroshenko said, "Biden is angry about you freezing Burisma assets. I'll figure something out."
All right, so there you have it. In Shokin's own words, in Poroshenko's own words, and in Biden's own words twice. Now ask yourself a question. Why isn't the news lighting Biden up over this? I mean, this is a huge story that involves a former senator confessing on tape to a major crime he committed while in the White House. And their answers to help him get back into the White House? That doesn't seem strange to anybody. I mean, maybe that's the manipulation. Maybe the people you think you hate aren't so bad after all. Maybe your hate